Alright, so this video here is just for technical, historical information. It's just me talking, no horn recordings. So just FYI, for folks looking for recordings, you need to go elsewhere. Check out my other videos. Alright, so what I want to do for this video is go over the different type of Nathan Erskine P horn manifolds that have come about over the years. Specifically, I want to talk more in depth about the low-profile three-piece manifolds. Those are very rare and very highly sought after in the collector world. And as a result, there's a lot of, well, let's just be generous and say reproductions of those three-piece manifolds that have come about. And so I want to try and help folks avoid overpaying for something that is reported to be original, but it turns out is actually not. Alright, so let's get into it, and let's start with gull-wing manifolds. Alright, so the first manifolds that came out are still the most common. So the P-horns were invented in the early 1950s as a low-maintenance alternative to the M's. The P-horns were an invention entirely of Nathan Erskine, which was the American subsidiary. Erskine was founded in Canada, and Nathan Erskine was the American subsidiary, which had the license rights to manufacture and market the Erskine horns in the United States. It was an offshoot of the Nathan Company. So anyways, Nathan Erskine, the American company, was the one that actually came up with the P-horns. So the first manifolds that the P-horns had was what the collectors call the gull-wing manifold. And this has a setup where you have two horns on each side of these wings, and one horn in the center. And you can see with the newer one, that's the same way. Now, you have the old cast and new cast versions of these gull-wing manifolds. However, very big emphasis here, the manifold does not produce the sound, the manifold does not change the sound. It is very common to have an old cast manifold that has new cast bells on it. It's still a new cast horn, okay? Now, just as with the bells, you have the pat pending on the old cast versions, whereas the new cast versions either have a blank space here or have a tag installed over here. So this side, that is smooth with the Nathan Erskine Model P. This is the back of the manifold, and this side here with this little rib that runs along is the front. Now, obviously, since this is a 5-chime manifold, in order to use it for P3, you need a pair of blinker plates. And these just install over the ports like so. You put a cork gasket in between the blinker plate and the manifold. And just as with the P-bells, these blinker plates can go on any position in the manifold. Okay, so the low-profile manifolds are, in my opinion, the most interesting and are the primary focus of this video here. Alright, so the low-profile manifold started out in the 1960s with this. This is a low-profile 3-chime manifold. Now, despite what some may tell you, these low-profile P3 manifolds are not rare at all. They are super common. Southern Railway and NS had thousands of these things. They had pairs of low-profile P3s on each end of a lot of their GP units. The point of the low-profile manifold is to spread the horn out a little bit wider so that it wasn't as tall. On the low-profile P3 manifold, you got one bell on the top, and then one bell mounted on either side here. Now, on all styles of low-profile manifolds, you have Nathan A on the front of the manifold, and then you have the part number listed on the back of the manifold. And we'll come back to the part numbers in a little bit here. So the low-profile P3 manifold is C21093. So, the low-profile 5-chime manifolds were an offshoot of the low-profile 3-chime manifold. Now, in 1975, Dean Ellsworth was working with Amtrak and Nathan Erskine to develop a horn unique to Amtrak. The original idea was to use the P5A for Amtrak. Now, Amtrak, of course, later ended up going with the K5LA. That was another Dean Ellsworth creation, but the first one was the P5A. And Amtrak needed the low-profile 5-chime manifold for use, particularly in the eastern United States, where clearances were pretty low. And so, what Dean Ellsworth and Nathan Airchime did is they took the low-profile 3-chime manifold and they added to it these extension wings. Now what these are separately cast pieces, and has the P5 mounting foot profile on both sides with an additional mounting location on top. And the idea is you put you put a gasket in between this extension piece and the manifold and slide extra long bolts in through this way, through the bell that bolts onto the end. And it bolts together like so, and gives you an additional horn mount on each side, turning this low-profile 3-chime manifold into a low-profile 5-chime manifold. So, a couple of things about this. Number one, the low-profile 3-piece 5-chime manifold, like this, used the low-profile 3-chime manifold. I did see one instance where there was a gentleman who was trying to sell just the low-profile 3-chime manifold, and he asked top dollar for it, claiming that, well, this came from a 3-piece manifold. Yes, that is true, but it didn't command a higher price because there's no difference between the low-profile 3-chime manifold and the one that was used in the low-profile 5-chime manifold. The only thing unique to the 5-chime manifold, the 3-piece, was the side extension wings. Those are the only valuable parts. Otherwise, this by itself, just a low-profile 3-chime manifold. Same exact piece, same part number and everything. Now, these extension wings, as I mentioned, very rare, very highly sought after, very valuable. Now that has caused a lot of people to start making reproductions. So these are a set of originals, and these are the reproductions. Now, the reproductions come from the single-piece low-profile 5-chime manifold, and that's this here. Now, obviously, with the 3-piece manifold, trying to get this assembled was a huge pain in the butt. So you had 2 gaskets, one between the manifold pieces, one between the manifold extension and the bell. And so you had to slide these super long bolts in through the bell, put a gasket on, slide the bolts through the manifold extension, put another gasket on, and then try and balance everything while you're threading these bolts in. Huge pain in the ass to assemble. So, to make things easier, around the same time Nathan Airchime switched from the old cast to the new cast, they came up with this. This is a low-profile 5-chime manifold. A 1-piece casting eliminates the need for those long bolts and extra gaskets, and you have a mount in the center, you have your 2 mounts up top, and then you have your other bells mounting on the end here. The part number for the low-profile 5-chime manifold is C21098. Now again, that's different from our 3-piece manifold, which is C21093. So our reproduction 3-piece extension wings come from these low-profile 5-chime manifolds. What is very common to have happen is you get people who will cut these 5-chime manifolds here and here to make these reproduction extension wings. It's really easy to do. All you have to do is drill out your bolt holes all the way in, cut your pieces off, and there you go. And I have seen, like I said, some people trying to sell these reproductions as the originals. But there's a couple of really easy ways to tell. Number one, let's look at a reproduction and an original side by side. First of all, really obvious thing. The originals have a very small air passageway. The reproductions have a very large passageway, which comes from the low-profile 5-chime manifold. Also important, the original wings, have this open space up here by the top by the top bell mount, whereas the low-profile P5 manifolds do not. They have a solid piece all the way here, pretty thin. Now, it's pretty common on these reproductions for people to just take a grinder and remove that material to make it look like the original. But again, it's a dead giveaway with the larger air passageway. Finally, and very important, is that these two-piece extension wings have a part number on them, C21095, whereas the reproductions, it's a little hard to see because of the paint, but these reproductions do not have a part number on them at all. Because again, when we go to our low-profile 5-chime manifold, there's only one part number, and there's nothing on our sides. So if you ever see a 3-chime low-profile manifold that has that part number on it, 21098, you'll know it used to be a 5-chime that somebody cut up. Now, one last thing about these reproduction wings here. Or rather, I should say one last thing about the originals. So we know how to spot the reproductions. Pretty easy to tell. It's not a huge deal for me to have these reproduction ones. These are very fun to play around with. They're very useful to have. If you want to make, for example, everyone loves the P7 that Ed K used to make back in the day. Everyone loves that. Everyone wants to make their own. These are really useful in doing that. Now the originals, like I said, have a part number on them, but they have a left and a right version of that. So it's the same part number, C21095, but it's on opposite sides of the parts, because there is a left and a right of these. I have seen on occasion where people will be selling original 3-piece extension wings, but both of them have the part number on the same side, and that means it came from 2 different sources. Not a huge deal, but just something to be aware of. So yeah, there you go. You have your newer low-profile P5 manifold. You have your original, rare, very valuable 3-piece low-profile manifold with our part numbers and our small air passageway. And you have your reproduction extension wings. Pretty easy to spot the difference between all of these, and now you know what to look out for when you're buying your stuff. Thanks and have a good day.